In a world surrounded by franchises, reboots, and shared universes, an elite team of podcasters will risk body and soul to investigate the depths of intellectual properties, one multiverse, subgenre, and trend at a time. Who are we? We're the IP Squad.
Welcome back to the IP Squad and our ongoing investigation into the Universal Soldier franchise. I'm John Campbell. With me, my partner for this investigation, Michael Listman.
Yo.
Ice-T still has not shown up in these movies.
Unfortunately.
Damn it.
Yeah.
It does feel like he would have snuck in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I could be a Eunice South too.
That's me.
We are jumping a
Because
full...
they put him on ice.
That's right. They really should. This should be the Ice-T Ice Cube franchise.
Actually, yes, that would be great.
Yeah.
Have they been in a movie together?
They have.
Okay.
You should. It's a good movie too, called Trespass.
I think I've heard of this.
It's them. Bill Paxton is the main actor in it, and then the two of them. Super fun '90s action movie.
Was it called Iceman Cometh?
It should be. The Iceman Cometh. No, we're jumping a full 10 years between movies here, from 1999.
Is this the biggest leap in time?
I think it is. It definitely is.
Okay.
Because we went from 91 to like 95 to 99, something like that.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I'm not going to bother to go back and look. You go through our archives, folks, and see what
you do the work.
Yeah, that's our attitude. But we were talking about 2009's Universal Soldier Regeneration.
They have regenerated the franchise.
This is the now third rebooting of the franchise.
Yes.
Because we had the first movie, then we had the Battaglia movies,
which we're led to believe take place after the first film.
Those were the initial attempt at doing direct sequels to the first movie.
Right.
Then we had last week's episode, which was Universal Soldier: The Return, which was meant to be, we're getting it all back on track. We got Van Damme
we're returning
back.
to the origin of the film. It's only the first movie is canon.
Right. And then nobody liked that.
Nobody
and
liked that.
And it bombed horribly.
Yeah.
And so 10 years later, they're like, let's do it again and take basically the same approach, which is like, all right, well, that's now wiped from canon and we're going back to just making a sequel to the first movie. And I think we're both in agreement. This is the best one we've seen so far.
Yes, I would agree with that. I have my quibbles. I've got my problems with it. If we're just talking about it as its own standalone story, but by far the best movie. It is the best action. We both agree.
Unquestionably, the best action.
It explores the concepts more than any other film, which is what we've been asking for. It does a lot of things right.
Yeah, this is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yes.
If this had been just movie 2 without all those other ones, we'd been like, okay, hey, this is going somewhere.
Right. It'd make me excited for the third film.
Right. Instead, this is the 5th film.
What if has a franchise ever done where it just every sequel completely invalidates? Like, they make a first movie, and then they make a second movie, and then they make a third movie that invalidates the second, and then so on and so forth for every single sequel.
No, not
that could
that.
Be an interesting
that
idea
would be
for a franchise.
It's not. No one's ever done anything that directly.
Like, I guess intentionally that way. This is just inadvertently.
Yeah, right. Because this reminds me of the Halloween franchise I always bring up. Has a lot of these sort of things. A lot of horror franchises do this, where they're like, that one counts, but not this one. This one counts, but not those two. Yeah. Because we did. If you're a patron, you can listen to Listman and I talk about the Halloween films, which the most recent ones, which were the reset David Gordon Green, which is, at least for now, the current canon.
Right, because we watched the OG film.
Right, which is the only one like this, is the only one that all of them address.
Yes.
And then we watched the David Gordon Green ones, which in 2018 he erased everything.
Like several reboots worth of. Yeah.
And the Alien franchise has kind of done it. They almost really did it. There was a pitch from Neil Blomkamp to make an Alien a few years ago that would have just acknowledged the first two movies and picked up from there.
Yeah.
So it happened.
So Alien Romulus didn't do that? I thought it did do that.
No, Alien Romulus takes place between Alien and Aliens.
Oh,
so
okay. Gotcha.
It does in a non-destructive way.
Honestly, that's pretty smart. I still need to see that movie.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
We just covered that last season on the show.
Gotcha.
If you've heard our Alien versus Predator series, and I definitely, it's got kind of I have similar feelings towards this movie. It's got problems, but it's a huge step in the right direction.
Okay, gotcha.
It's easily the third best Alien movie, but as always, I say that's a low bar. It's a
so
low bar, but it's got some good stuff in it, and it's totally watchable.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Universal Soldier Regeneration. Yeah,
because this isn't the third best Universal Soldier movie. Like we said, this is the best one.
I think it's absolutely the best one.
Yeah.
This one, immediately we got to talk about John Hyams, who's the director, and is he the writer? He's not the writer on this one, but he is the writer for the next one. So something tells me he probably did some writing on this.
Probably, yeah. Just some punching up.
But John Hyams is the son, I believe, of Peter Hyams, who was a well-respected action director.
Who did JCVD films of the 80s and 90s? Yeah,
I just want to get his credits exactly here, because interestingly, Peter Hyams is the director of photography on this movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He did he did Time Cop, Sudden Death, and actually I mistakenly said this. He actually directed that Van Damme movie we did back in the Action Shelf, Enemies Closer, which was one where so actually that was the father, Peter Hyams,
gotcha, who
directed that amongst many other movies.
Right.
And it's interesting, he was the cinematographer here on this movie.
That is interesting.
This was noticeably better shot than previous ones.
There is attempts at interesting angles. There's interesting camera movements. There's a oneer at one point.
There is, which is interesting because the budget on this movie. Do you want to take a guess as to what the budget on this was?
It can't be much. I mean, it looks like we said, it looks leaps and bounds better than the last movie we saw, which was released in theaters.
Yes,
but based on what we've talked about, it's got to be pretty cheap. $15 million?
Less, $10 million.
Okay.
And the last one, $45.
That's crazy.
This movie cost $35 million less than the movie we watched last week.
That movie looked terrible.
Yeah.
Even by 1999. I mean, that's what we were saying.
This is definitely feels of the 2009 we were talking about. It feels very post-born.
Yeah.
But through that, it has a vibe. It has a style. It evokes a feeling.
Yes.
Whereas the last one was so flatly shot. Obviously, the two before it were just garbage can TV movies from the 90s. Yeah. And the original movie is totally competent, but it looks like every other action movie from that era. Yeah. There's nothing that particularly stands out about it visually.
Like if you told me that the first Universal Soldier movie was directed by somebody other than Roland Emmerich, I'd believe you. I'm not like...
No, it doesn't have a lot of it, and it was a much lower budget than something he would end up doing. Like you think of Roland Emmerich as doing stuff like Independence Day. Sure. Things like that.
Oh, did he do Independence Day? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He wants you to remember that. He probably wants you to forget that he also did Independence Day 2. Independence Day Resurgence, I think was the title.
Wow.
Awful movie.
Yeah.
Very, very bad movie. We'll talk about that at some point during, there will be an IP Squad season I've talked about of great movie, terrible sequel. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so, but... I mean, the working title of this movie was Universal Soldier: A New Beginning.
And it's worse than Regeneration for sure.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying Regeneration's a great title,
but all of it to indicate that this was very consciously like, hey, there was a kernel of an idea in that first movie. Maybe we could do something of reasonable quality quality.
Yeah, don't worry about that other shit.
Yeah, those are terrible. And I'm sure for Van Damme, even, that was like one of his famous movies, Universal Soldier, and I'm sure wanted to get it back on the rails on some capacity, right?
Yeah.
So this was, I will say, this came out direct to video in America, but was released theatrically in Israel, Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, India, Lebanon, Jordan, Italy, Japan, Pakistan.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this did come out theatrically in some territories.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's strange. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I was about to say maybe I don't know what it is about, because there's a lot of American films that do okay here, but just explode worldwide. Obviously, this is before like sort of modern blockbuster.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that often is the case is I think Van Damme and Lundgren's name still carries a lot more cachet in some foreign territories than it did here.
Yeah.
Movie stars in general tend to have more longevity in foreign markets.
Yeah.
Even
just a culture that doesn't appreciate the movie star.
I mean, I would say it has dwindled a bit.
Yeah.
I think people overestimate that there are no movie stars. Movie stars don't matter at all anymore. But I think the thing about it is that they do, because you look at like something like Tom Cruise, whose movies do really well here, but do even bigger overseas.
Yes.
So I think the name brand cachet is a little bit bigger in places, and I think for sure with some of these older action stars, that's definitely the case.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think the big thing here that you can definitely feel immediately from John Hyams directing is there's an attempt to make this much more serious.
Yeah, the violence is a lot more grounded and gritty and sort of like horrifying.
Even more so than the original movie. We talked about one of our issues with that first movie is how blasé it is about the violence.
Yeah.
Like you start with war crimes in Vietnam,
but that's as far as they go. Everything else past the like ear necklace is like pretty tame and pretty just
and all of it is just kind of, it's all just kind of tossed off in this like, whatever. This movie really gets into like right from the start, because the opening of this movie, it jumps right in and really grabs you with like, oh fuck, people are dying, and
and these two people are being kidnapped, and it's pretty much always staying on them and their experience through this kidnapping and this car chase and this shootout,
Which I gotta say, right off the bat, I was like, wow, they're really like flipping real cars and crashing stuff into. So, man, they really stretched a dollar. I gotta see where they shot this thing, because I think that probably
helps the
save them some money.
But it's so smart keeping the perspective on the two people being kidnapped.
Yes.
Something that like the last however many of these films there have been do not consider.
I think it's
points of perspective.
I think it's something that is a misconception in a lot of action, which is to pull out to the wide to show the epic scope of something, as opposed to the more visceral thing is the reaction of the people. Close-ups actually sell you, and I've heard a lot of directors talk about this, that they'll go back and a lot of reshoots are just like, let me just punch in on people in a car. So I have these cool car stunts, but let's pick up some shots of people just, even if it's just a quick reaction of someone's eyes, it just, as an audience member, you're more connected to it than just seeing cars spin. And
and it also helps you not spend as much money because you're not focusing on these bigger.
Because a lot of these car crashes we're talking about, we see through the windshield of the car that the characters are in. And I think that is, I mean, it's something. It goes back to like the great car chases of film history, like William Friedkin strapping a camera onto the hood of a car in French Connection. So it's like, wow, it's not just like we're watching a car. We are the car, and we're seeing the speed of it as it's whipping through streets and going past people and stuff like that. By the way, our time in the trenches of B action. You got it right. You got that right.
First guess. All right.
Shot in Sofia, Bulgaria. Yep.
God, can you tell we've seen a lot of these?
the film industry in Bulgaria, I mean, they must be constantly working, the crew people over there.
I wouldn't be shocked if Jean-Claude Van Damme was like a god over there.
He must have a house there, right? Because he's got to spend a good chunk of his year there. He's half of their national income as Van Damme pictures.
Exactly.
Yeah. I really do like the setup for this movie, though, which is these Ukrainian separatists, terrorists of some kind. I don't know if they really state exactly what their deal is. Obviously, I think ultimately they don't. It's as simple as they don't agree with whatever they want a coup, basically. I think they want to overthrow the government,
or they want to separate from.
Yeah, they're separate.
Well, no, this is 2009, so it's not the USSR, but it's like
it seems like if anything, they maybe want to go back to the USSR or something like that.
Clear. A lot of the Russian scenes, there's no subtitles in the version.
That may just be the copy we watched, because I will say this movie weirdly hard to track down.
Yeah,
if you don't own a physical copy of it. So we had to watch a YouTube rip of it in watchable but not amazing quality.
Certainly not the worst video quality.
Oh,
I've ever seen.
No.
What was that?
It was a Dirk Benedict movie. I can't remember the name of it.
It was like Night something.
Yeah, and we were watching like a VHS rip of it.
Yeah, that felt like an artifact. You know what I mean?
We were going to die in 7 days.
Yeah, exactly.
No question.
Dirk Benedict would murder us in 7 days.
But yeah, so they have kidnapped the prime minister's children.
Yes.
And taken them to Chernobyl.
Yes.
Where they are going to detonate whatever radioactive artifacts are left in that.
Sure.
Good setup.
Yeah. Good.
And what that does is, and I think this is where we're talking about, like, something we learned doing the action shelf when we were talking about all these B movies, is you got to write to your budget. And I think this script does a good job of, once we're at Chernobyl, we're basically there for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like we're just in a warehouse in Bulgaria.
No, it's not one room. There's a lot of locations in this one location.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of The Rock in that way, where it's like, it becomes about the infiltration of Chernobyl. But it really gives you a vibe of this, and it's a good setup. And literally, they keep cutting to a ticking clock. The thing about this movie is, and we said this a couple times during this, it's not like this movie's doing anything spectacular, but it shows you how bad this franchise got. That, like, oh man, some competent writing and filmmaking.
Oh wow, the Russians are speaking Russian. Oh, I guess they're Ukrainian, but like still,
they're Ukrainian. Yeah,
they're not talking like this unless they're talking to an American. So they have an excuse to speak English.
Yeah, I gotta say, I guarantee you Himes had a lot to do with this, because this is this screenwriter's only credit.
Okay.
Yeah, something tells me that it's mostly...
bet that Himes just took the original script and just completely redid it.
I would, but that didn't get WGA, because we know how tough that stuff can be to get. Yeah, you know, so it's interesting. Well, we know what's interesting about this is Himes wasn't even the original director. Another director was signed to direct but dropped out during post-production. Simon Fellows. Who had directed several other JCVD straight-to-video ones we somehow didn't see, including Second in Command and Until Death. But, you know, that could be any of them. He also directed, this will shock you, some Wesley Snipes straight-to-video stuff, too. 7 Seconds.
Yeah,
which
sounds right.
I don't think we did, but once again...
That doesn't sound familiar now.
No, but...
Because we only did...
We did
like one Wesley Snipes.
Maybe one, maybe two. Yeah. We may have done one that he was in but wasn't the star of. I think we only did one... And it was sad to see, because I love that guy.
Yeah, that's probably why we didn't return.
It was a bummer, because he actually is a really good actor.
He's a really good actor.
And a good martial artist.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh no. And I'm glad he's kind of come back into legitimate stuff. Yeah. And in comedy, because he's very funny.
He is.
But no comedy in this. This is not all.
No,
this.
I don't think there's a single joke in this film.
No, this is deadly serious. And when we get into highs and lows, we'll talk about some people don't like that in their Universal Soldier.
Oh, they like the camp.
Yeah, and I think that's something where I would disagree with them. I think that I'm like, good. This movie, because, I mean, not that you can't have humor necessarily, but if you do, this is something we've complained about in the other ones.
Yeah.
If you really look at what the story of Universal Soldier is, it's pretty horrific.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And this movie doesn't shy away from that.
Yeah. Can you imagine if like Mary Shelley, when she made Frankenstein, was just like, oh, but it's fine. Yeah, we're playing God, we're raising the dead, but
whatever.
We're not going to really worry about that too much.
Is that really a major theme of that novel, though? I mean, playing God, is that a thing?
I mean, we were just blown away. There's like a scene of two people talking at the beginning of the film, being like, yeah, these soldiers, they were shot and they got back up. Like,
well, because
really
that's
coming to terms.
We see that opening scene where they kidnap the kids,
Yeah.
and they talk about how the guy kidnapping them got shot several times.
Yeah.
And so you have two military guys going, you don't think this could be? No way, we shut down the Universal Soldier program.
And officially, like...
That they made it a U.S. Army program.
They made it a U.S. Army program. I can't believe it took them 5 fucking films to
because it's so
that.
simple, and it obviously just should be, because you're talking about a direct pipeline of soldiers into this program.
Right.
So the U.S. Army at least being involved, of course, makes sense.
It was the aversion to not make the U.S. military look bad, I guess. Like, what was the hesitancy to make the military like?
I don't
run
know
the program, but they also don't universally.
The first movie's pretty vague.
A bad program to begin with. You know what I mean?
No, and in this movie, they go a little further than the last movie did, where it's like examining. Because in this movie, they were like, "Look, it backfired. People got killed." Because we see they do this cool thing where you have the main doctor, who I gotta say, I really enjoyed the performance of Gary Cooper, not that one.
Not the one you're thinking of.
Gary Cooper with 2 R's.
Yeah, they did Universal Soldier, the actor Gary Cooper.
Who I gotta say is probably objectively the best actor in this movie.
I think you're right, yeah.
And he gets all of the like, let me tell you of the Universal Soldier program.
Yeah, he's like the Pierce Brosnan of... what is what is that movie?
The which one?
The alien invasion.
Oh, Mars Attacks.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, where he's the professor. Yeah, he's so good in that.
Yeah.
Because Pierce Brosnan, actually, if you made this movie now as a studio movie, Pierce Brosnan would be the old scientist.
Yes, absolutely.
I think this guy does a great job. He plays Dr. Porter, and he just comes in. But as he's talking, once again, because it's like this director, Hyams, is thinking about visuals, we're cutting away to this, like, what looks like any kind of things you see of, it's stuttery, old 8mm footage of these programs where they're conditioning these guys. It's the classic, like, Manchurian Candidate imagery of them putting the guns together and stuff like that. Yeah. But just in general, this is the first movie where I've gotten a feel for, like, oh yeah, it's like MK Ultra, it actually feels like a conspiracy movie in that way. Yeah. And I think in my memory, the next movie gets way more into that.
I hope so, because that was a big complaint for me, is that they could have gone more into
this movie gets way into that, and I think we both got excited about it before it devolves into, while very well done, just a fight picture.
Yeah, they have no interest in plot after about halfway through the film. Which great action, but like,
that's the thing. I'm less bummed about than I have been, because the action is really solid.
Yeah,
but it is like, it's still a missed opportunity.
Yes.
But I think as Hyams gets more control over the franchise in the next one I know has criticisms from some of the fans for not being enough of an action picture and being more of a cerebral thriller.
Okay. Well, this sounds like it could be up my alley.
I think the next one is, in my memory, the best of the bunch.
Okay.
And I haven't seen it since it came out, though. I haven't revisited these a lot.
Yeah.
Although this one reminded me, I did remember really liking this one.
Yeah.
Because it's like we said, it's a huge step up. But yeah, the whole idea is, well, don't we still have a couple of Universal Soldiers lying around? Because the Prime Minister's children are kidnapped. They're holding Chernobyl hostage with this nuke. And they have a Universal Soldier is basically the thing.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do? Well, it's like, we've got a couple of Universal Soldiers still on ice, right? And they're like, we should thaw those out. They're like, oh yeah, we've got all but one of them. And guess who that one is?
Could be anybody, John.
It might just be Luc Devereaux.
Oh, I thought it was Battaglia.
Who was also Luc Devereaux.
Yeah.
Which is very funny, because he's like, hello, I'm Luc Devereaux.
It's me, Luc Devereaux.
Yeah. He doesn't even have that level.
I don't even know what he sounds like.
No, he was just like, I'm Luc Devereaux. Like, he was so boring. I saw him in something the other day, and I was like, holy shit, Battaglia. He was playing, like, unnamed military commander.
I thought it was like the obituaries.
No, he's still alive.
Okay.
He was in some modern action thing where he was just like one of the guys back at command, which is like...
Wait, wasn't it? It was a pretty big thing, right? Like he...
Yeah.
We might have mentioned this before.
Well, we've talked about he shockingly works a lot.
Yeah.
But in like the fringe of stuff.
God, just to be a tall, handsome man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
he's in Thor.
That's what it was.
Yeah. That wasn't what I saw him in the other day.
Okay.
But I saw him in something...
we were talking about how he just kind of... Like, if you just look right, you can just kind of show up in things.
Oh, I think it was SEAL Team, the David Boreanaz show.
Okay.
Where, once again, he does read as just like, oh yeah, that guy in a uniform looks like he belongs in a command center.
Right. Yeah.
And he had a couple lines, but all of his lines were like, reactivate the satellite uplink and stuff like, And you're like, fine, but it was just like, but I was shocked at like, oh my God, this is a real deal thing with money. Yeah. And that's Battaglia.
What the fuck is he doing?
Because you're like, oh man, obviously Dave Boreanaz is your lead because he's actually compelling and interesting to watch. But, I was just shocked by like, I think I was watching going, Battaglia! Holy shit! He's loose!
It's a reflex, like when you tap your knee or whatever.
Yeah, Battaglia!
Battaglia!
That's him! He's there.
Get him! Oh, wait.
Yeah, but no, that guy still works a lot somehow.
Wow.
Because once again, he just looks right.
Yeah.
I will say, we do have kind of a Battaglia in this movie in Mike Pyle.
Yeah, I don't understand. Here's my problem with this film. They added a lot of elements, unnecessary elements that just overcomplicate it, which don't leave room for other more interesting exploration.
I will say, looking up Mike Pyle, who I knew nothing about, who plays Captain Generic Dude. Captain... Yeah. I'm going to tell you his name, and it's the most generic white guy action name. Captain Kevin Burke.
All American.
Yeah, Captain Kevin Burke.
Yeah.
But I will say, this guy, much like our... we'll talk about who the main antagonist of the movie is because it's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
This guy is also a big UFC fighter.
Oh, okay.
And most of his credits are as stunt double or on fight teams for movies.
Yeah.
So he was brought in just because he could
fight. I mean, I guess he was fighting.
He gets the fight with the pit bull.
That's true.
His because our big new addition to the franchise in this one, because obviously the big
Mr.
thing here
Worldwide himself
is welcome to Miami. I feel like all of his songs are about partying in Miami.
Yeah, that sounds right.
No, our big thing is Andre the Pitbull Arlovsky.
Wait a minute, that wasn't a pitbull.
He is a world-class MMA fighter from Belarus.
Sure.
So what's interesting is this movie is all about Ukrainian stuff, and then they actually have a guy from that region, but he doesn't have any lines, and it doesn't matter to the plot that he is from there.
No.
But yeah, he is an extremely well-respected UFC fighter.
Yeah.
And I gotta say,
he did a good job.
Welcome addition to this movie for sure.
Yeah. Very intimidating presence.
Huge intimidating presence. Able to do all the fight scenes. And
he's no Goldberg, but yeah.
Well, I think he does what I wish Goldberg had done,
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, which is just sort of let his physical presence and ability. Well, Goldberg though. Look, no offense to professional wrestling fans, but there's a big difference between a professional wrestler and a UFC fighter.
Yeah, one of them is actually fighting.
Right. Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm looking at this guy's career. The amount of times he defeated someone in TKO in UFC is insane. Multiple wins by TKO.
Good Lord.
So this guy is the real deal world champion fighter, and
when you
see
see him on screen and he's supposed to be intimidating, I believe it.
Yeah.
Goldberg is a large man.
Yes.
But at no point was I intimidated by that.
No surprise, let's see here, that he does play one of the henchmen in Equalizer 2. So I'm saying, because this guy is interesting. Now, he plays a character who's not given a name. He is just NGU. Which
is the new name.
New Generation Unisol.
Yes. Which, as we said before, is, I think, a better name.
Well, Unisol just never flowed well.
It reminds me of Pine Sol.
It's
like, that's a
Unisol. Brought to you by the good folks at Unisol. That's NGU. So he is credited as NGU. Now, here's the thing. We were like, oh, interesting that he's in the next movie. He apparently plays a different character in the next movie. So.
Okay. See, I was expecting, because they introduced cloning.
Yes, because that's
introduced cloning.
One of our big questions for this was, how are they going to bring back Dolph? Because the big thing this one had going, the last one was like, we're bringing back JCVD. Mm-hmm. You're like, cool. This one, though, is like, we're bringing back JCVD and Dolph.
Yes.
And you're like, Dolph definitely got mulched.
He did get mulched. There's no Universal Soldiering him back together.
Yeah. Andrew Scott is the character that Dolph plays.
Sure.
You know, Dolph is super American.
Yeah, so American.
I'm just the most proud American dude that you can get. But they do introduce, because you even said, you're like, I wonder if it's going to be like cloning.
Because they have introduced cloning before.
Did they?
Luke Devereaux's brother was
cloned. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Oh God, that's right. That was taking me back to those days when they put in an actual martial artist and then didn't have him do anything.
Yep. Complete incompetence. Just absolute incompetence.
Jeff Wincott, who actually is an extremely good martial artist and actually a pretty good actor too.
Much better than Battaglia.
Yeah, we were just like, why wasn't he lived
better than Battaglia in both cases?
Yeah,
both acting.
Absolutely,
and
he's a good. Yeah, we stand a Jeff Wincott.
Yeah, absolutely.
We liked him on the action show.
Yeah,
when he took over for Chad McQueen in the martial law franchise,
God.
Things got way better.
Improvement.
Huge improvement.
Yeah.
Because that guy actually does stuff where he isn't required to do martial arts, and they just let him have lines. Because he can do that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so this movie does bring in cloning with this idea of, one thing we can't avoid in this franchise are arrogant asshole scientists.
Yes, I don't think this franchise likes scientists all that much.
Well, this is definitely it's interesting you bring up the Frankenstein thing, because that is definitely that baked into the DNA of this, like, what have you wrought?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the whole conceit, really.
I will say,
Frankenstein story.
Kerry Shale is the guy who plays Dr. Colin.
I wasn't blown away by this man.
But he is the other ringer in this cast. He is also a well-respected British character actor.
Okay.
And is in a lot of major movies, and does a ton of voice work.
Yeah, I wasn't really buying him in this film. But
now keep in mind, he is also not using his actual accent, which I think
that's true. Yeah,
I'm not saying, but I'm saying and he's not. I said
he's not
tons
terrible.
And tons of video game voiceover. That seems to be his primary thing.
Gotcha.
And like I said, and then like smaller role, he's all over the Hitman games, it looks like.
Okay.
But tons of British stuff. Also lots of like audio drama stuff. So it looks like he's mostly a voice actor, which may also have something to do with.
Yeah, maybe that's part of it.
Is that his? But once again, I mean, I think he. Also, the character is written to just be really
just so
like, I'm a dick, So I mean, I think some of that is
that's got to be part of it. Yeah, it's just I don't believe this as
because this guy clearly has got chops.
Yeah, it's just
like he was on the Sandman TV show. He was in Wednesday. He's been in some Guy Ritchie movies. Like I said, he's done voices in big stuff. He was just in Star Wars Outlaws, the video game. He was in the RoboCop video. He does a voice in Alan Wake 2. So I mean, we're talking like big,
big stuff,
big title video games. A lot of the the Audible original audio dramas. He does a lot of those.
Maybe my problem was more the character.
Well, because it's a one note character. He's just an ass. He's very arrogant that he's the guy who's like, yeah, I'm the Universal Soldier scientist who sold out to the highest bidder.
Yeah, I kind of wish they did more with the character.
I feel like they have some interesting ideas for characters, but they drop the ball. We'll get to the French psychologist character, who I feel like is the biggest drop ball of a character here. Like
beginning of the movie, she seems like a really interesting addition.
Well, let's get to her here, because we talk about this idea about he's able to bring back. He's created this new generation of Universal Soldier.
Yes.
And so they need the old Universal Soldiers they had lying around, the Army did, which I just love. Although I do think that's very also real for like military industrial complex. Like, hey, this was a bad idea, but let's not get rid of everything. Let's keep a few of these guys
about
around.
The stockpiles of nuclear warheads.
Yeah.
That's
kind of how they treat the Universal Soldiers here, where it's like, we've got like 4 or 5 of them lying around we could fire up.
They never really get rid of anything.
Right. Yeah, just the idea. But the thing is, they've got 5... there are 5 Universal Soldiers left. 4 of them are on ice, and one of them is in Switzerland with this French psychologist who I guess convinced the government to... like, hey, let me try to reprogram one of these guys.
Yeah, as like, it's like, this could be an interesting study on like what the psychological
and of
effects
course,
of it.
That's Luc Devereaux, who inherited his French from his mother.
Yes,
an American father,
whose last name was Devereaux.
He had an American father and a French mother, grew up in America, but somehow, I guess just through DNA, has a French accent.
I'm assuming, so maybe the father took his mother's name.
It would have to be, right?
That's what I'm choosing. That's
or it could be a situation where he was of French ancestry, went to France, met a French woman and married her. Maybe it's one thing like that. I went back to visit the home country.
Yeah,
I don't know. But he was played by Rance Howard, who was like maybe the most American. Like, hello, I'm like read as farmer type,
I'm Jacques Devereaux.
There, son. Rance Howard, of course, father of Ron Howard.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But, big time, a guy who was in like a billion movies. Yes. But anyway, so we find Luc Devereaux. And I got to say, at the beginning of this movie, I was like, ooh, levels for Van Damme to play.
But they really do. As soon as the action starts, any amount of character development for Van Damme's character is completely
because she's keeping him in this snowy but like pleasant little town in Switzerland and sort of slowly acclimate him to the world. It's doing, for a second, this movie is doing the thing we want.
Yes.
Which is like, this idea about this guy's on a journey towards humanity.
Yes. And then
because it seems like in every other movie he's either like stone cold, basically robot, or he's totally just Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yes.
And this movie is actually positing that he's in an in-between stage.
Yeah, and I would have loved to have seen that transition a little bit more instead of injecting himself with soldier juice.
Yeah. Which even that, though, could have been something interesting if then the rest of the movie, he spent fighting that, feeling some of its humanity, but losing parts of it.
Yeah, like he doesn't want those injections.
Yeah, I also, to me, the most interesting idea would have been if the whole movie had taken place, like, they come to him, they come after him. If it had been more of a Bourne Identity thing.
Sure.
Because you get a little taste of that in the scene where they go to, like, a cafe or whatever, and he just sees a guy walking at him. He perceives a threat and kicks the shit out of him.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
And what if it had been like, oh, wait, they are after him?
Yeah. Yeah, the paranoia. There is a value to the paranoia, even though it's not good for his mental health.
Well, and I think that they could, maybe a better screenplay would have made it a more tragic, like, I must become this to protect you.
That's what I was wanting.
Like, if you had really made the movie based around the relationship he has with this psychologist, who I think is pretty good, but ultimately is very limited in how much she's in the movie.
She's in, like, the first 15 minutes and then barely is in the film.
Emily Joyce is her. Yeah. She's another UK actress.
Yes.
And I think, once again, so I guess the three Brits they brought in are all like, because they're all
that makes sense.
They're all pros. Not names, but working, solid character actors. Like, she's been on every single BBC, like, detective drama, basically. She did a Doctor Who. She's also done some of the Doctor Who audio dramas. She's in the second National Treasure movie. Like, working, employed. She's currently on the Doctor Who Third Adventures podcast audio drama.
Sure.
Which I must add to listening. I didn't know that was a thing. Just came out this year, so I'll be listening to that. Mm-hmm. But so and I will say that all three of them do at least have. Well, they all have the most dialogue in the movie.
That is true. Which again, smart on us filmmakers, like from a filmmaker.
Yeah, the other guy. There's also the other military guy who's played by Corey Johnson, who's an American, I believe. Yes,
he's the the main,
he's not the captain who goes in, but he's the other army guy.
Yes.
He's the guy going, you can't possibly mean the Universal Soldiers.
Right, yeah.
And he's also okay. And similarly, he's another like working character actor.
Yeah.
Seems like, once again, though, American-born, UK-based. I mean, look, this is a guy who's in Morbius, for God's sake. So,
I mean, we can't hold that against him.
well, no, you can't hold that against. I mean, I say that even though Morbius isn't a good movie, it's a big studio movie that he's in. That's what I'm saying. Yes. So, like, I mean, this is a guy who is in real deal stuff. He's been in movies with major movie stars and stuff like that. Actually, probably of anyone, he's been in the most big name credits.
Interesting. Yeah,
I mean, he's been in like movies. He's in Ex Machina, the Oscar Isaac movie.
Wait, who is he?
He plays Jay. I don't know who. I mean, he's probably just one of the
guys.
It's been a while
since I've seen that movie. I only remember the three main actors.
Yeah, but I think Oscar Isaac's got like people that work for him and stuff.
I guess he does. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah,
and like he's in Kingsman, and he was on 24, and like he's in Captain Phillips with Tom Hanks. He's in a couple of the Bourne movies. He's in X-Men First Class. Okay. Kick-Ass, I mean, so he's a real deal. Yeah, he's in 3 of the Bourne movies. He's around. So I mean, these like I said, these are all the people who talk the most.
Yes,
which is smart. Yeah, like you said, give those. So anyway, their big thing is like, oh, we've got to get Luke Devereaux. Well, because they send in the Universal Soldiers they have, which I did really like. Them including the eyepieces, but them drilling it into these guys' heads.
But then it was really easy to remove them later.
Yeah,
and they didn't really. It's so interesting because like I was expecting like for it to be torn out and there to be like some viscera.
Yeah,
it's literally
because this is a movie that would do that because this movie is not afraid of there being gore.
Right, but yeah, I don't know.
But the thing is, these guys are the old generation of Universal Soldiers, and so they just get wiped out in a second by Andre the Pitbull, who kicks ass in this movie.
Yeah, he's got a cool retractable arm blade.
That was awesome. And also cool. Very comic booky. Yes. So of course I love it. That's such a comic book supervillain weapon to have. Or have you seen the movie Marathon Man with Dustin Hoffman? It's a great 70s conspiracy movie.
So.
But Laurence Olivier in that movie has a sword that comes out of his sleeve. Which I know sounds
No, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier is playing.
I love that it's Laurence Olivier.
You've got to see Marathon Man because Laurence Olivier plays a Nazi war criminal.
Oh my!
So it's supervillain Laurence Olivier. No, I'm telling you, that movie fucking rules, and he is all in on it.
Excellent.
Yeah. Watch Marathon Man. It's one of. I'm a huge fan of 70s paranoia thrillers, and that's one of my very favorites. Yeah, you've got Dustin Hoffman fighting Nazi super criminal Laurence Olivier. That's where the famous "Have you tried acting, my dear boy" came from.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
is the making of that movie. That's the time they worked together. Also features one of my all-time favorites, Roy Scheider, in that movie as well.
Right.
Yeah, the best. Anyway, talking about better movies, but this is a pretty good movie.
Yeah,
I got to say, also, no surprise here, highest critic rating score for any of these. This movie.
Does that include the next film?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, the next one, I think the next one's more polarizing.
Yes.
Because it takes bigger swings, which is what I like about it. But I think some people didn't quite go with it.
Okay.
So I like it. But I will say this one is more agreed upon, like, hey, pretty good.
Yeah, because
the next one's like,
the action's
woo.
good. And that the action is most of this.
That's what this movie is. When you're, once again, you got to keep in mind with these movies, of course, you're looking for, this is not maybe divorced dads only, but that person renting something out of a red box for a Saturday night punch 'em up movie.
Yeah.
And on that
divorced
level,
dads would approve.
Oh yeah. But I think that it's a little bit wider on this.
Yeah.
But that's so that on that level, this thing is like a 10 out of 10.
It kicks ass.
Well, we talked about. I think you said this. And I think you're right. This has the most martial arts of any of the movies combined.
Yes.
And it rules.
Yeah.
You've got guys who are experienced in knowing how to shoot action. Because Peter Hyams spent decades doing that, and then obviously now his son directing this, and the two of them working together. And you have acted like you can see these are the actors doing the fights.
Yeah, like they're obviously Jean-Claude Van Damme and
Dolph Lundgren and Andre the Pitbull.
But their fight in the first movie.
Oh yeah, in the first movie, yeah,
is fine.
But that's not a martial arts movie.
No.
Like that is a fine 90s action movie, period.
But it doesn't
But for both of them, it's like a B-.
Right, exactly. Like,
we've seen other movies where we know these guys are real deal.
If I'm going to be on, like, if Dolph Lundgren is in a movie and he's not doing martial arts, I don't think I give a shit.
Unless it's a Rocky film, I'm with you.
Right. Yeah. Like,
because that's his thing. He's not an amazing actor, but like in this, like I said, the couple times in this movie where you really see him throw like a power kick, you're like, fuck,
that
man.
is great. I do.
He just has that huge long leg.
What is his character's inclusion in? Like, there's too much going on. Like,
I agree. I think there's
in the movie, but not be the main antagonist makes no sense.
Well, it does feel like you could have both of these antagonists, but at a certain point, it does feel like it should be handed to Dolph.
Right, because he's the one that has history with Luke Devereaux.
Because let's talk about how we bring Dolph. Because we talked about so all the old Universal soldiers are wiped out by Andre the Pitbull, who's the new generation. He's the NGU, the new generation Unisoul.
Mm-hmm. Star Trek NGU.
Controversial entry in that franchise. I am still waiting for the next generation that they keep talking about doing, which actually they're talking about calling Star Trek Legacy. But I am all on board for the next generation, the Picard kid show, son of Picard, I would just call it. But so you've got so they have to go. Oh wait, we still got another one. Yes. And of course, the best one.
Right. Yeah.
We can still send him in.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, what we discover is that there's an internal disagreement between the head of this Ukrainian separatist unit, which I think this is actually a good screenwriting turn, which is about halfway through the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The prime minister of Ukraine caves and gives these guys what they want, which we did have to look it up on Wikipedia. Now, some of this may be because we couldn't read subtitles.
Yes.
We didn't have subtitles.
Yes.
Not that we couldn't read them. We're both excellent readers.
Yes. There's whole scenes in this movie in Ukrainian.
Yeah, that we were just like,
no subtitles.
At first we were like, ooh, bold choice.
Right.
But then we started to go, oh, wait a minute. There's like whole long dialogue scenes where we're clearly missing, I think was what confused us, which is why we had to go to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But they want other members of their organization released from prison.
Yes.
And so he does that, and they're like, yes, we've done it. And so shut off the bomb. Yeah. We'll release the kids. But that the asshole doctor guy's like, hey, no. I was in this for the money, man.
Mm-hmm.
I need money. By the way, also very comic booky. I need a lot of money so I can build an army of Universal soldiers to...
Do what? Like, what is his goal?
I guess probably more of this, which is like I can then sell them as mercenaries.
So it is just money. He doesn't have any greater...
I don't think he's trying to take over the world.
Okay.
I don't get that vibe from him. I think it really is just like, I need a lot of money so I can make more of these so I can make even more money.
Okay.
Because I could sell these to the highest... I think he views this as a test run, right? Okay, yeah. It's like, did you hear about that thing in Ukraine? Those were my guys. I can give you those guys.
I just didn't get this sense that anything was planned. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't like outmaneuvering the Ukrainian, separatists or anything.
Yeah, well, his big thing is... Because he has a little nerdy scientist guy who's his assistant.
Yeah, it's great to be. It's great to have somebody who
we would be up for the role of assistant evil scientist.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm reading for the part of assistant evil scientist. Yeah. Let me just give a quick look to the camera of dear God. I don't know why I did it to Shatner, but dear God.
Oh.
I do think, that's the thing about this movie that I think in general is good, if less fun, is nobody's doing Busey, in this. I'm saying everyone in this is pretty serious.
That's right.
But I'm saying there's nobody here camping it up, which I think is good for the movie, but I think did disappoint some members of the audience who were like, this movie isn't as, I think it's fun when you get into the action, but it's definitely grimmer.
Yeah.
There's a grim tone here.
The Raid is not fun or campy.
No, I think
it's not campy, but the action.
I gotta look what year the Raid came out, because I do feel like they're particularly in some of the Warner stuff later. There's some Raid vibes.
So much it feels very much.
2 years after this, the Raid comes out.
Okay, got it.
I do think though the vibe I was getting from some of those, and I think was Born, and then the other thing is Children of Men.
Yeah.
Because the action in that movie is that, like, when he's moving through the hallways and killing all the guys at a certain point, that felt very much like the Children of Men action, where you're going through... Children of Men is a fucking masterpiece.
I need to rewatch that. I own it. I need to rewatch it.
That is one of my favorite movies.
One of the best movies, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's... and talk about top-level science fiction that also has incredible action sequences.
Yeah. I don't even think about it as an action film, really.
No, yet
that's not what I remember.
Yet its set pieces are all astounding.
Yes.
But it is... And also, I think maybe the best Clive Owen performance.
I think so, too, yeah.
He's... amazing in that. Yeah. Although I'll just keep recommending other stuff to people. Yeah. If you haven't seen Monsieur Spade,
I have not.
I highly recommend it. Where he plays older Sam Spade, the main character from the Maltese Falcon, who has retired to France, but of course gets pulled into another mystery. But amazing, like the great what you're looking for as an actor his age, like that great later in career, like holy shit, that's right, Clive Owen's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I think we take people for granted sometimes, and I saw him play a lot of forgettable bad guys and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just like, oh yeah, Clive Owen will be here to be the British baddie,
right?
Which is always a shame because he's so good.
He is.
Anyway, so the thing though is this is how we get to Dolph is that the evil scientist guy's big move is, well, I gave them the pit bull to be their guy. So he's with them. He's
programmed to not be able to betray.
Because it seems like this movie is positing that without those parameters, they would just kill anybody in their way.
Yes.
The Universal Soldiers are given, like, here are your friendlies, here are your enemies.
Yes.
And so he's like, well, what they don't know is I've snuck in, because we did see this at the beginning, them bring in one of these cryopods that they keep, which are basically
way better than...
They're actually, because they're like zipped in like a contained refrigerated...
It's like a sarcophagus.
Yes.
It's not just
and they've got like
sitting in chairs in a glass room for some
reason.
Right.
They're in like what is clearly like a thermal control thing that's got a hose plugged into it.
It makes sense.
And you can pick it up and move it from place to place.
Which is why it being fabric makes sense.
And that's also... It makes it fabric. They can, and the other thing is they're always then unconscious between missions.
Yes.
They're not able to get out of their chair and attack. Yeah, It's just like they're more like the Winter Soldier, where we suddenly we just freeze them, unfreeze them. And so he's brought this in, and what we find out is that Dolph Lundgren, the clone of Andrew Scott.
It's a clone.
Yeah, we should almost have a checklist for these sci-fi tropes. As I said, I don't think we ever get to time travel in this franchise, but I feel like if they had made a 7th movie, we'd be going back to Vietnam.
Exactly.
That feel right? That would be... I'm shocked they haven't made that.
Yeah.
They... Back to where it all began. Right? Oh, man. They're going to do that because then they can de-age Van Damme and Lundgren.
Yep.
I 100% expect a Netflix original movie at some point here, because that's kind of where Van Damme is living these days, is on Netflix.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know,
I mean, one of the things I'll say about Netflix, which you can talk about the faults, but they have really kept alive like mid-budget stuff.
Yeah,
they've really embraced like action stuff that's not, like big spectacle action, or things like romantic comedies and things like that, underserved genres. So. Yeah. Good on them.
Yeah.
But in that he has, this is my ace in the hole. If I need to turn on the Ukrainian separatists, I can unfreeze Dolph Lundgren and he'll kill whoever I want.
Yes.
Except that doesn't work.
Because Dolph Lundgren then immediately kills the scientist.
Even the clone of Dolph Lundgren is also a psychopath.
Yes.
Yeah, he couldn't get that out of him.
It's so strange because, the whole fight between Dolph Lundgren and Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Right.
Lundgren seems to be out of this sort of like pure soldier, like following orders trance.
Right.
He's sort of waking up, while Jean-Claude Van Damme is totally focused because of his soldier juice.
Because that's the thing, which once again, I feel like there was a way to write this as interesting. Because the whole thing is they go and get Van Damme.
Yeah.
They train him again. They start pumping him full of drugs. Yeah. And then ultimately he injects himself. But I think the thing I wish that had been done, and look, I know people are like, oh, here you go. You guys are always trying to fix movies on these podcasts. But I think...
What else are we supposed to talk about?
Yeah, but I think one small... And you could have so much of the same, but one small note is this idea that he would need to wrestle with and ultimately choose to inject himself.
Yeah.
And so this idea about making it more a clear sacrifice.
Yes.
And making it sad. That's why you needed more scenes, I think, with the psychologist.
Yes.
Because we see her reacting to being sad about this.
Yeah.
But this idea about, like, I have an ability to save people. And if it costs me my humanity, then that's the price I pay.
Right, exactly.
Because that would make him the more heroic. He does ultimately inject himself. What I just wanted was more build up to it.
Yes.
And more of like, look, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Once again, that's very comic booky, but this whole franchise is but this whole idea about like, I have to choose to be the superhero. I have to choose to do this thing that will, once again, that would make it the noble heroic sacrifice.
Yeah, I'm sacrificing my own humanity
because then
help other people.
There'd be this bittersweet like tragedy to it. Of, even as we're enjoying him kicking ass, we know, oh shit, like but it would make him a more active character.
If they made that one change, this would be such a better movie. Like I would legitimately.
It takes me back to we mentioned Doctor Who earlier, the Doctor Who 2-parter Human Nature.
Yeah,
where he has to choose to basically kill this person he's become, who has love and stuff like that, to be the Doctor because he can save the world as the Doctor.
Right, yeah.
And like
very Severance.
Very Severance, like I said. But I mean, that's in a lot of genre stuff about like, look, I have to choose to do this. I have to choose to put the Batman mask back on. I have to choose to get my powers back. It's Superman 2, where he gives up his Superman powers to love Lois Lane, but then General Zod comes, and even though he knows it's going to cost him what he loves, he has to save the world. I mean, this is classic stuff.
Yeah,
I just wish, once again, if we had, I think you're right that I don't know what exactly, but like if you took out maybe 2 plot strands, you would have more time to make the ones that are still there more impactful.
Yeah, because that's the problem with a lot of these films is that they just put too much in.
Yeah.
And they don't spend enough time on the things that are
This one does feel like we had a lot of ideas.
Yes.
And so we're doing all of the ideas. Yeah. And none of them are bad ideas.
Not necessarily.
But
they're just underbaked.
They're all underbaked. So yeah, I think the big thing that they needed they just needed another draft of this thing and to focus it more.
Yeah.
But they get so much right. And it still is, once again, as we keep saying, in comparison, way better.
It's leaps and bounds better.
Way better.
Yeah.
And this movie has so many awesome kills, so many great fight sequences. We were talking about the way these fight sequences are shot feels like, whereas the last movie was so chopped up, this movie, every cut felt so right. Like, boom, when we cut to... But it felt more like cutting to an angle as opposed to chopping something up.
Right. Yeah, they're not scrambling up a bunch of takes. They're showing you the shot that you would expect to happen naturally from the flow of the fight.
Oh, we cut into, we start on this part of the fight, then we cut in close to see this punch land, cut back out. It may everything there's
utility to every shot.
Yeah, no, I
cut
understand
around and edit a fight
the motivation of each cut is awesome.
Yes,
including, like we said, the oneer where Van Damme is just going through that hallway with a knife and slicing dudes as they're coming down the stairs. Yeah. Because, I mean, once again, it is awesome when he's in full soldier mode. Because Van Damme's killing a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
And that's obviously what I've paid my 99-cent Redbox rental for.
Yeah, it'd just be nice if there's a level of melancholy that you'd feel on top of that.
Because and like we're talking, because it's there whether they want to do it or not.
Yes.
So lean into it and you would have a better movie.
Yeah.
And like I said, in my memory, I don't want to oversell the next one because I haven't seen it since it came out, but I remember that being much more the case.
God, I really hope it. John, we've been building up this
well, I mean, right off the bat, having Scott Adkins in that really he can play that.
Yeah.
But so we do get this confrontation between Van Damme and Lundgren that he is really cool.
Yeah.
And the way he kills Lundgren.
That was great.
Fucking rules.
We love it.
He jams a pipe into his head, then puts the barrel of a shotgun down the pipe and blows out his brains.
And then he says, "Pipe it."
No, that was the Arnold Schwarzenegger version.
Sorry.
It's actually the same movie, but I just went in and
put the pipe in it.
Yeah. I'm
laying pipe.
It's stick this in your pipe.
Yeah, and then smoke it.
Then he would. I think this is how it would go in an 80s man. He would stick it in and go, stick this in your pipe, blow his brains out, and smoke it. Yeah.
Oh God.
I do. There is something about see. That's the thing is, Arnold can do that campiness, and you're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Van Damme never had that.
No.
Van Damme can be very charming.
Yes.
But he never did the one-liners well.
No.
And Dolph fucking can't.
No, don't.
Dolph is better. It is the Stallone joke about you gave that guy lines.
Yeah.
Dolph is a great physical presence.
Yeah.
And actually, I think he is playing. This is an engaged Dolph. We've seen non-engaged, and it's Dolph.
You can see it in his eyes.
You definitely can. He is.
He's
can
not
see.
Thinking about
He's happy to be here.
Island,
he's happy to be in
this. He's not thinking about his trailer.
I mean, we know. He and Van Damme like each other, so I think that is a thing. They set up that fake fight to draw press for it in Cannes. We talked about it on the first movie. Yeah, we love that. The idea is that.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Dolph Lundgren worked 5 days on this movie, according to
tracks.
IMDb, whereas Van Damme shot for 20.
Yeah. 20 days?
Yeah, 20 days, which I think would be like the whole shoot.
Yeah.
Or most.
Damn, that's efficiency.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. Because I don't think this thing would have shot for more than a month.
They wouldn't have been able to afford it. Yeah.
No, at this level, they had to shoot this thing. I'm sure they initially premiered this movie at Fantastic Fest in Austin, which is the genre fest. I'm sure this movie played like gangbusters.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think what else. So and I think the other problem we had was once the fight happens between him and Dolph Lundgren, the fact that he then has to fight the pit bull feels a little anticlimactic because that's like if Batman fought the Joker, and then like a newly created character.
Yes.
And you'd be like, well, wait a minute, what?
No, hold on.
Yeah, you can't have that because all of the emotional stakes are in the Lundgren fight.
Yeah. And you don't get to even see Jean-Claude Van Damme like have those emotional reactions to it.
No,
it was very I don't know. It was sad.
There's just nothing in this movie is bad, but there's just a lot of missed opportunities.
Yeah,
this is a good movie that I think could have sailed into potentially great territory.
Yeah.
And I think that's where our frustration lies. But there's a lot of good. I do like the direction this franchise is going in.
Yeah,
I like how visceral all the violence was.
Yeah.
This feels a little weightier. We just wish it had even more. So.
Yes, I wish they cared about character a little bit more, just a little bit more,
just a touch. Yeah. Now, obviously, this movie didn't come out in theaters, so I can't tell you where it ranked box office wise. But let's just look for curiosity's sake at the 2009 box office.
Oh gosh,
what were we seeing in 2009?
It's probably a Marvel movie.
We're in a weird space where there's been 2 Marvel movies in 2008, but nothing in 2009.
Oh, okay.
And then Iron Man 2. Yeah. Number 1 movie at the box office we definitely went and saw, which was Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, the second Transformers movie.
Yes, we did see that.
Of course.
What year did Inglourious Bastards come out?
I believe that was 2009.
Okay.
We saw that. Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Though that was 25th at the box office. So a hit, but obviously not to the level of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, which is number 2.
Right, Harry Potter was still a thing. Okay.
Pixar's Up at number 3.
Oh.
C. Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters episode here was talking about the Twilight Saga New Moon.
No, Jesus.
And Avatar.
Right.
Yeah, 2009 was the year of Avatar.
Yep.
And I think is only not number 1 because it came out at the end of the year. So it made a certain amount of money in 2009, but most of its money in 2010.
That makes sense.
The big one for me that year was the first of the Star Trek reboots.
Oh, yeah.
2009 Star Trek was massive for me, as you might imagine.
True, yeah.
And that movie kicks ass. I will go to bat for that movie.
Yeah, I really like that first one.
That first one's really good. I
heard the third one's pretty good, too.
The third one is actually my favorite of the bunch. I think the third one is...
It feels the most Star Trek.
It feels like a really big budget episode of the TV show.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Whereas like the first 2 are like action films with Star Trek.
The third one actually is and it makes everyone is as important. That's the thing I like best about it is all 7 crew members get big stories in it. It actually feels like a crew movie. Anyway, there's no doubt there'll be a Star Trek movie season of this show, so I'll get to talk about those. So that's what was out at the time. You want to look at some highs and lows of people's reactions?
Yes.
We'll start with the highs because I think this is closer to where we are.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get this from. This comes to us from Tango X, who titles their review, "This should have been the second film." Okay, so I gave it 10 out of 10. Well, why? Well, because this was real. This really was as good, if not better, than the first movie. In fact, this should have been the second film in the series, as that was pretty terrible. That, of course, did leave quite a few holes. My advice would be this: if you're going to watch Universal Soldier, make sure you leave the second one out, then this will make total sense. I do agree if you're going to watch these movies.
Just watch this one second.
Yeah, watch the first one and then this one.
Yeah.
Apart from the little mistake, it's really very good. A lot of work went into this film. It does show. I love seeing Dolph Lundgren back in action. Good to see him back in more films now. It was pretty spot on. Not many words and a great fight scene between Van Damme and Lundgren. However, I would say this. I do think this is better than the first film, which is a hard act to follow. Yeah, I know it's not the best in the world, and I gave it a full score. However, I do think it's better than the 5 most of the other people on here have given it. 5 stars. My advice is rent it, buy it, keep it, because you will want to watch it again. Some pretty impressive stunts and fights are on the menu. If you like action, this film is for you. I do agree on, once again, for the action of that. Yeah.
And now, also that it's the best of them. I would agree with that too.
Yeah. Now let's talk about some people who didn't care for this movie, of which there are a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I have a couple I can choose from here. All right, here we go. This comes to us from Bastard Bear. I just read what's in front of me. Titles their review: Beyond Awful, Beyond Predictable. Insofar as a sequel can be said to be a success if it recreates or expands on the original, Universal Soldier Regeneration can be seen as a success in that it's every bit as awful, every bit as predictable, and every bit as cringingly lame as the original. I won't bore you with a summary of the plot. Firstly, because there isn't one, at least not to speak of. And secondly, because let's face it, the sort of people who like this sort of movie don't go on a bundle about plots. Okay. Thankfully for such folk, no brain cells are required to follow the action, quote unquote. Acting, universally dreadful. God knows Van Damme and Dolph were wooden enough in the original, but you'd think the intervening years would have allowed them to take maybe Soap Opera 101? No, not a chance. They grind wearily through every line, almost kind of belching them out as if they knew the terrible standard of writing they're having to deal with, fully accepting that they truly are the worst actors on planet Earth and have long since decided to trade in whatever small shred of credibility and self-respect they once clung to for a few dollars. It's truly tragic, like watching a bunch of wizened old farts lurching inexorably towards the bar, only their incontinence pads holding them together. I could go on to point out how truly hopeless the sound, lighting, camera work, and direction are. But we all know that this sort of film has its own audience, and that mindless audience will doubtless love it. What I will say is that as a fan of decent action films, there's precious little action, and what little occurs. No, this movie is wall to wall.
Most of the movie is action,
wall to wall action. That's our big sticky. That's our big stand. The action is not only
so much,
and it's really well shot and directed, and choreographed.
I'm so confused by it.
I would be curious what this person thinks of when they say quality of action movies. And what little occurs happens so predictably that not only could I work out how a scene was going to end just as it began, but I could even predict with about 80% success rate what the next camera angle or quote-unquote combat move was going to be. If you compare it to something done a long time ago, but like for instance, the first Lethal Weapon, or even the original Predator, then you'll find it sadly lacking in all departments. I love both of those movies, but I think the action in this movie is as good as the action in those movies, really.
Yeah.
And in terms of like the fight choreography.
Honestly, probably better than Predator.
Predator doesn't really have like fights. Like Lethal Weapon has martial arts in it.
Yeah.
The whole point of Predator is you can't really throw down like that.
No. People are just getting eviscerated.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not really like a martial arts franchise.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
I would barely describe it as an action film.
I mean, those movies have always vacillated between they're action, sci-fi, horror. Yeah. Anyway, basically, the makers of this film owe me the time I spent watching this meaningless drivel. I don't expect a refund or even IOU, but if there is a God, may he strike each and every participant down with piles forevermore. In short, don't be tempted to watch this, even if it's for free. You'll still feel like you were ripped off, even if you didn't pay a penny.
Okay, so he is admitting
1 out of 10 stars. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking up.
Please do.
I'm looking up this person.
It seems very performative. I don't
know. I can't do it on here, unfortunately.
Mine too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh, here we go. See all reviews by Bastard Bear. This is the only review they've ever written. Only time I ever felt the need to tell my opinion to stop people.
Here's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Because he said he didn't like the first one either.
Right.
So why did he watch this?
I know. But likes quality action films, I guess. And I guess the examples were Lethal Weapon and The Predator, which, agreed, those are quality action films. But
yeah.
But kind of not what I would have expected. I would think this guy would be like
something,
like French or
yeah.
I don't even know, because like I said, I would say like something like The Raid, but this movie has a lot of similar action to The Raid.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's the thing I don't understand is like, get on it for being dumb or whatever, but the idea that you're like, and the action is shit, and also that there's not a lot of action. That's
just factually incorrect.
There's a ton of action. You cannot
whether
like
or not action is good. Yeah, that's subjective, but it's mostly action.
It's mostly action.
It's over 50% of this film is just action, no dialogue.
And we would say good action.
Yeah.
And I think that's a step in the right direction for this franchise if you're looking to, because we have been upset about the lack of action of the other one.
Yes.
I don't know what that guy was watching.
Weird.
Anyway, as we've said before, we'll be wrapping up this season next week on the show with the final entry, as of now at least, because I'm sure, like any known franchise, they'll eventually come back.
Yeah.
But that is Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning, which does bring in our beloved Scott Adkins.
Scotty!
Oh, we love a Scott Adkins. I was just watching his most recent film the other night, at least it's recording of this, called Take Cover. And man, what a pleasure it is to, even in lesser movies, watch that guy act and fight.
Yeah.
We love him. We love an Adkins.
We do.
I want to see if I have the tagline here. Oh yeah, the tagline is, and I think this is an indication of where it might be going, under their own command.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's right. Things are going to get interesting. I will say they make some bold choices in this that some fans of the franchise don't care for. But I think based on what we've been watching...
It's a musical.
Yeah. But I think based on what we've been saying, I think you're okay with the idea of them shaking things up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bringing some...
I don't have really any reverence for the franchise, even though I've now seen almost all of them.
They're I feel like they've been fun at best. Yeah. Pretty fun.
Mostly shit, but sometimes pretty fun.
Yeah, and this is probably, I've seen the first one a few times. I would go back, but this is, since the first one, first one where I would watch this movie again. I'd probably
watch this movie again.
Yeah, if only for killer fight scenes.
Yes.
Amazing fight scenes. Yeah. Which is, once again, at the bare minimum what I expect out of something at this level.
Yeah.
Just give me good fight scenes.
Yeah, it's especially an action movie. Give me good action.
If you've got a bunch of trained fighters.
Yeah.
So, well, there you have it. That was our discussion of Universal Soldier Regeneration. Of course, you can get even more from us over on our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/punchupent. That's punchupent, where we do an exclusive bonus show called IP Squad Related Cases. For this one, we've talked about a few things. We may have even mentioned them on there, but what I think we ultimately settle on is we're going to be talking about a movie called Blackwater, which is I believe, other than, they're not really in Expendables together, but I believe other than the Universal Soldier movies, the only other pairing of Van Damme and Lundgren, and it's a submarine movie. Gotcha. So we will be watching that for the Patreon.
A lot of room for kicks in a submarine.
It's a closed environment.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do a lot of the guy who'd be good at that would be Seagal, right? With his Aikido or whatever.
Then he doesn't have to move.
His little chops.
Yeah. The walls are holding him up. He barely has to stand.
There is no...
I don't know if he'd fit in a submarine, actually.
Not now.
No, well, yeah, certainly
no.
not now.
He was, of course, in a battleship very famously in Under Siege.
Oh, who could forget?
And then on a train in Under Siege 2, Dark Territory. That was the one where he refused to start working out again.
Mm.
That's the first one where you're like, Seagal?
Steve.
Yeah. So anyway, go check that out, as well as cool bonus content from all the shows, including Material Components, which you can hear Michael Listman on every week on the Punch Up Entertainment channel, both on our YouTube page and on our podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, remember to like, comment, subscribe below, ring that bell for notifications. But I think that's going to do it. Until next week, the case file is closed.